James, have you ever thought that these tiny grapes might hold a history spanning thousands of years? This morning, I read some interesting facts about grapes, and I couldn't believe they've been with us since ancient times. I bet many people don't know this. What do you think about sharing this amazing story with everyone?
Absolutely, Alex. Grapes are more than just a fruit, they're a witness to history, culture, and even spirituality for thousands of years. According to the book The Domestication and Exploitation of Plants and Animals edited, studies suggest that grapes were likely domesticated from wild varieties in the eastern Mediterranean. The journey of grapes from these regions to becoming symbols in great civilizations like Egypt, Greece, and Rome is definitely a fascinating story that people won't want to miss.
That sounds amazing, James. I think the story of grapes, from a wild fruit to becoming an essential part of our culture and life, is definitely worth exploring. So, let's get started. James, I'm really surprised to learn that grapes have such a long history. But, where exactly did they first appear? Did they originate in renowned agricultural regions like the Mediterranean? Or are there specific countries we can mention?
Exactly, Alex. Grapes, especially the Vitis vinifera species, originate from a large region including the Mediterranean, West Asia, and Southern Europe. To be more specific, wild grapes were first discovered and domesticated in notable countries like Turkey, Georgia, and Armenia. These lands have a characteristic Mediterranean climate, hot, dry summers, and mild winters, which creates the perfect environment for wild grapes to thrive. Turkey, with its Taurus mountains and fertile coastal lands, is considered one of the cradles of grape development. Georgia and Armenia are also renowned regions, with their nutrient-rich canyons and valleys, where the earliest wild grapevines provided fruit for prehistoric communities. These unique geographical factors not only allowed grapevines to survive and thrive but also laid the foundation for their domestication into the cultivated grape varieties we know today.
So, places like Turkey, Georgia, Armenia, why are they particularly suited for grapes, James? Is there something special about them?
There are several factors that make these regions particularly suited for grapes. Firstly, the Mediterranean climate is crucial. Areas like Turkey and Georgia have dry, hot summers, and mild winters, which helps grapevines avoid many fungal diseases that typically thrive in more humid conditions. Secondly, the limestone soil in these regions, especially in the mountainous and highland areas, is rich in minerals, providing essential nutrients for grapevines. Limestone soil also has excellent drainage, preventing the grapevine roots from becoming waterlogged during the rainy season. These conditions help grapevines develop deep and extensive root systems, allowing them to absorb more nutrients from the soil. As a result, grapes from these regions often have a distinctive, robust flavor, something people often refer to as terroir, the spirit of the land expressed in each grape. And did you know, although red and black grapes are commonly used to make red wine, white wine can also be made from dark-skinned grapes? The secret is simply to remove the skins before fermentation. This is a little-known fact in winemaking.
I can't believe that grape domestication goes back thousands of years. The Neolithic Age? So, James, how did people back then recognize and domesticate this fruit? That must have been a fascinating process, right?
That's right, Alex. The domestication of grapes started around 6000 to 8000 BCE, during the Neolithic Age. Imagine, at that time, early communities were transitioning from a hunter-gatherer lifestyle to farming and animal husbandry. They began to realize that wild grapes, when picked and eaten fresh, were not only delicious but could also be preserved longer as dried grapes or even made into wine through natural fermentation. Domestication began when these early people selected the best-tasting grapes, those with more flesh and fewer seeds, and started planting them near their settlements. They gradually discovered that growing these grapevines could provide a stable food source and even produce wine, a revolutionary discovery at the time. They also learned to care for the vines, pruning them to increase yields, and selecting the best plants to improve fruit quality over generations. This natural selection process eventually led to the development of the grape varieties we know today.
James, I really want to know, how did we discover grapes in ancient civilizations? Did they perhaps record this in paintings or some sort of imagery?
You're right, Alex. Ancient civilizations left us with plenty of evidence of grape cultivation and use, especially through the motifs and paintings on pottery, tomb walls, and other archaeological sites. For example, in ancient Egypt, tomb murals often depicted scenes of grape harvesting, pressing, and winemaking. These paintings were not just art, but also historical documents that reflect the importance of grapes in the economy and culture of that time. Moreover, fossilized grape seeds found in archaeological sites in Mesopotamia and surrounding areas show that grapes were not just gathered from the wild, but were cultivated by humans very early on. Finding these seeds in ancient wine cellars or in pottery also indicates that grapes played a significant role in winemaking, a product that held value not just economically, but also religiously and socially.
So what about the archaeological artifacts, James? I've heard they also hold a lot of valuable information about grapes and how they were used in the past.
Exactly, Alex. One of the most notable artifacts related to grapes is the pottery from the Mycenaean period in Greece, which depicts scenes of grape harvesting and pressing. These paintings not only show the techniques of grape cultivation and winemaking but also clearly reflect the importance of grapes in religious ceremonies and daily life of the Mycenaeans. In Egypt, we also find artifacts like wine jars, drinking cups, and grape presses in the tombs of the wealthy. These artifacts not only prove the presence of grapes and wine in ancient life but also show that winemaking techniques were developed very early on. In fact, the Egyptians even have murals that detail each step of the winemaking process, from harvesting the grapes to pressing the juice and fermenting it. This shows that grapes and wine had become an essential part of their culture and religion.
That sounds amazing. So, James, what role did grapes play in ancient civilizations? It must have had a significant meaning for them, right?
Exactly, Alex. Grapes weren't just an important food source, they were the primary ingredient for making wine, a product of immense value in the religious and social life of ancient civilizations. Ancient Egypt, wine was considered the drink of the gods and the elite. It was often used in religious ceremonies, especially those involving the god Osiris, the god of rebirth and the afterlife. The Egyptians believed that wine symbolized the blood of Osiris, and drinking it during rituals helped them connect with the gods and gain their protection. And did you know, although we often think of red wine as the most popular, in ancient Rome, white wine was actually more favored. In fact, wealthy Romans would even infuse their wine with perfumes to enhance the flavor.
James, I'm curious, how did grapes from regions like Anatolia spread to other places like Egypt and Greece? There must be an intriguing story behind that, right?
The migration and expansion of grapes is a phenomenon that occurred over thousands of years and is closely tied to the migration of ancient peoples and the development of trade routes. The Anatolia region, particularly modern-day Turkey, is considered one of the first centers for the domestication and cultivation of grapes. From there, grapes gradually spread through trade routes connecting different lands. Traders from Anatolia carried grapevines with them as they traveled to new regions, bringing grape cultivation and winemaking techniques to Egypt, Greece, and later Rome. In Egypt, grapes became an integral part of the culture and economy, with winemaking techniques developed to serve religious ceremonies and the lavish banquets of the elite. In Greece, grape cultivation and winemaking flourished thanks to the favorable Mediterranean climate and fertile soil. The Greeks adopted these techniques from other regions and improved upon them, making grapes one of the most important crops in their agricultural economy. Greek wine quickly became a part of cultural life, used in religious ceremonies and feasts, and also became an important export commodity.
I've heard that wine was very important in ancient Greek culture. Is that right, James?
Exactly. In ancient Greek culture, wine was not just a drink but also a cultural and religious symbol. It was closely associated with the god Dionysus, the god of wine, festivals, and joy. The Dionysia festival, one of the most important festivals in ancient Greece, was a time to honor Dionysus and also an opportunity for theaters and artists to showcase their works. Wine also played a significant role in Greek social life. It was consumed at large banquets called symposia, where philosophers, artists, and politicians gathered to discuss and debate philosophical, political, and artistic issues. These banquets were not just opportunities for entertainment but also occasions for exchanging ideas and knowledge, enriching the intellectual life of ancient Greece. Greek wine also became an important export commodity. Merchant ships from Greece carried wine to various regions, from Egypt to Rome, helping to spread Greek wine culture throughout the Mediterranean. The trade of wine not only brought economic profit but also helped strengthen diplomatic and cultural relations between nations.
What about Rome? What did they do to develop the grape industry?
The Romans didn't just inherit grape cultivation and winemaking techniques from earlier civilizations, they refined and developed them to perfection. They expanded grape cultivation throughout the Roman Empire, from Italy to France, Spain, and even Germany. This not only ensured a sufficient supply of wine for domestic needs but also created a surplus for export. One of the greatest contributions of the Romans to the grape industry was the development of advanced agricultural techniques, such as pruning and trellising, which increased yield and fruit quality. They also invented several methods for preserving wine, such as using oak barrels for fermentation and storage, which gave the wine a distinctive and longer-lasting flavor. Roman wine quickly became one of the empire's primary export commodities, traded extensively across the Mediterranean and even to far-flung places like Britain and the Germanic regions. Wine wasn't just a high-value trade good, it was also a part of Rome's diplomatic strategy, helping to strengthen relations with other nations. In Roman culture, wine also played a crucial role in feasts and ceremonies, becoming an indispensable part of Roman life.
James, can you tell me more about the wild grape varieties from the early days? What special characteristics did they have?
Early wild grape varieties, especially the Vitis vinifera sylvestris species, had many different characteristics compared to modern grapes. Wild grapes were usually very small, with large seeds and thick skins, giving them a bitter and less sweet taste compared to cultivated grapes. The color of wild grapes was also very diverse, ranging from light green to black, and they often had a thin layer of bloom on the skin to protect against environmental factors. Wild grapevines typically grew in bushes or climbed tall trees, thriving in forests or along riverbanks. These grapevines had deep and extensive root systems, allowing them to absorb a lot of nutrients from the limestone-rich soils. Their ability to withstand harsh conditions like drought or poor soil fertility allowed these wild grape varieties to survive for thousands of years before they were domesticated and bred into modern grape varieties.
So how did people develop new grape varieties from those wild vines?
The process of developing new grape varieties was a long one, spanning centuries, beginning with people selecting the best wild grapevines with desirable traits, such as larger, sweeter, or fewer seeded berries. These vines were then replanted and bred together to create grape varieties with the desired characteristics. Breeding wasn't just about selecting vines with tasty fruit, it also involved improving the vine's resistance to diseases and harsh environmental conditions. For example, the Romans developed breeding techniques to create grape varieties that could adapt to various soil types, from the limestone soils in southern Europe to the clay soils in Gaul, modern-day France. Thanks to careful breeding and selection, we now have famous grape varieties like Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, Cabernet Sauvignon, and Merlot, each with its unique flavor, color, and cultivation method. These varieties not only enhance wine quality but also expand grape-growing regions across the world, from Europe to the Americas and Australia.
So how have these grape varieties changed over different historical periods?
Grape varieties have continuously been improved and developed over historical periods to meet the growing demands of people. During the Roman era, many new grape varieties were bred and widely planted across the empire, including those suited to colder climates in northern Europe. Advances in cultivation techniques, such as using trellises to increase light and airflow to the vines, also helped improve grape yield and quality. Did you know, during the Renaissance, winemaking developed to the point where winemakers began experimenting with adding various herbs and spices to wine, creating unique flavors that we can still find in some wines today? This was truly a period of creativity in the history of the wine industry.
I hope you've learned a lot of interesting things about the history and value of grapes through this video. It's amazing to see how such a small fruit holds such a great story within it.
That's right, grapes aren't just a part of history, they're also an essential part of our lives today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss out on more fascinating stories.
Leave a comment below if you have any questions or thoughts. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you for watching and exploring the fascinating history of grapes with us. See you in the next video. We'll continue our journey exploring more fascinating things about the world around us. Don't miss it!